Welcome to Police Profiles. I'm Officer Bob Frudenberg of the Suffolk County Police Department's Community Relations Section. Today we're going to be talking about the drug recognition evaluators. These are officers in our Highway Patrol section that are really experts in evaluating what kind of drug somebody may be on if they're arrested for driving while intoxicated. Welcome to Police Profiles. Officer Larry Bartley.
Hi. Hi.
And Officer Dan Meyer.
Oh.
You have a lot of experience in arresting people. Between the two of you, you have 1,600 arrests approximately for driving while intoxicated.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, both of you have gone to this drug recognition evaluation school. Maybe you could tell me a little bit about how this program got started, and then tell me a little bit about the training. Larry, why don't you start it off?
Well, the program began in L.A. by the Los Angeles Police Department around 1982, where they found a need to set up a program to detect people that were impaired by drugs. The drug recognition program is a program to detect drug-impaired operators of motor vehicles.
Yeah. Doesn't matter if the drug's alcohol or something else, they're still endangering the lives of themselves and other people.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. The program, the training that we received, started with a 2-day preschool whereby we were instructed in what we would be required to know and do in the school. The school was a 2-week course given by the New York Department of Criminal Justice and NHTSA, that's the National Highway Traffic Safety Organization. And after finishing that school and passing their exams, which were rigorous, we then went through a 3-month program where we went to the city police department and evaluated people that had been arrested for selling, using drugs. And after that, the program was considered complete.
And Dan, you've been a police officer for a number of years. You've made hundreds, literally hundreds of arrests for driving while intoxicated. How did this enhance your ability? Because I want to get into what we were talking about a little bit before the program
Basically,
began.
the DRE program was a great benefit to myself as a DWI enforcement police officer, because a lot of times we were seeing impairment of subjects, and then when we took that impairment and put them on a breathalyzer or an intoxilizer or a pre-screening device in the street, and the impairment was not equal to the low breath alcohol concentration or blood alcohol concentration that we were seeing from the results of the breath test. And we were saying to ourselves, boy, this guy is really screwed up, and he's very impaired, and
why isn't he reading higher?
Why isn't he reading over a .10 alcohol?
Yeah.
And
Makes sense to
basically,
me.
this is where the DRE program came in.
Yeah.
It taught us the 7 different categories of drugs that most of the drug culture can fall into, and we were able to not only just say, boy, this guy's messed up on drugs, we were able to analytically look at a drug symptomology chart based on all the training that we received and pick the category or categories, because a lot of the drug use now is polydrug use, either alcohol and cocaine, or alcohol, marijuana and cocaine. We're seeing a lot of...
We teach, you know I teach DARE, and we teach our children in 5th and 6th grades that many people are cross-addicted. In other words, they're not only on alcohol. As an officer who's been removed from making DWI arrests, driving while intoxicated arrests, for a number of years, before we started, I said, Larry, be real. I couldn't tell. I'd be able to tell you as an expert DRE that an evaluator of drugs, this guy's worse. When he was out there, he was worse. Then you come into play, don't you?
Yes.
If I bring somebody in and I say, I got a DWI, but he's only blowing, and that's, I'm sorry that I'm using our slang, but he's only blowing a .04.
Right.
And wow, He's much worse than that on the street. And you're looking at him and you're saying, you know, Bob, I kind of agree.
Right.
Now you come into play. What happens then?
Well, this is where it all begins. It's a very good point that you bring up. You're looking at this guy or girl, she's taking the test, and her impairment does not match the reading that you received on the intoxilizer or breathalyzer or whatever the instrument that you had used. We would then perform a 12-step evaluation program, which would start, the first step being the breath test, to eliminate alcohol as a cause of this impairment.
It could be both.
It could be.
Now, if they, and this we talked about also, if they blow an impaired reading, which is a .06,
right,
it stops there.
Yes, then the person is considered driving while ability impaired by alcohol. Mm-hmm. That's where it stays then.
But it's also possible, and I've seen this happen, it hasn't happened to me, where the person is impaired and there's no smell of alcohol.
Yes.
Do you skip over the intoxilizer or no?
No.
No.
You still give the intoxilizer?
Yes, that
It's a
isn't part of the test.
12-step standardized and systematic program that we must follow. It's a nationwide program.
Okay.
It's used in...
I told you I was naive then.
It's used in many of the states around the country, and each DRE person, I'm a national instructor. I can go to any state and teach the program, and I will know for sure that the DRE in Virginia is doing the exact same standardized program as the DRE in New York.
Okay, you keep talking about the 12-step. Let's get into it. What are some of the steps?
Okay, we started with breath.
Okay.
Then the next step would be the interview stage. You would interview the officer who made the arrest, find out what test he did if we're not on the street. If we are on the street, we'll say, well, what did he do? How did he drive? What steps did you perform so far? We find out from him. After that interview stage, what was the third step?
Well, there's an actual drug influence evaluation chart that we do follow, and keeps us in line on the 12-step program. And basically, we just want to get a little history of the subject, what he's eaten, because you'll get people who have eaten for days. You know, they'll be smoking marijuana, and they'll be eating all day long. Or if they're doing heroin, they have no interest in food at all.
Yeah.
And it's just some of the things that we need for the background.
It's another indicator. It's
Exactly.
another sign that's pointing to.
Yes.
Exactly. And then basically we'll go into some of the standard field sobriety tests to see the impairment for ourselves, so that when we go to court, we can say the subject failed the standard field sobriety test. Some of the standard field sobriety tests that we use are the Romberg balance test, where we're looking for his perception of time, how much he can estimate 30 seconds with his eyes closed, and we're also looking at the balance. Somebody who is
This is quite extensive.
Oh yes, somebody who's on a depressant may take 2 minutes and say yes, 30 seconds is up. Someone who's on a stimulant, as of cocaine, we get
10
it all the
seconds.
time. They'll sit there and 1 or 2 seconds, close their eyes and open their eyes and say that 30 seconds is up.
Wow.
So then you would go on, and
that's how you tell the categories. I find this fascinating.
well, it's the information that we use. We take all the information first, the 12-step program, and then we evaluate all that information we have, put it into the drug symptomology chart that we use, and we can basically pinpoint the category of drugs that the subject is on.
I asked you, and you kind of laughed, both of you. I asked you if you could tell me what kind of drug it was, if it was Seconal. And Larry, I think you said it's like...
Yeah, it's like somebody asking you, well, officer, can you tell us what the subject was drinking? We're not concerned with what he was drinking. It's alcohol that impaired his ability. Yeah. The same with the drug program is we're not concerned with the name of the drug per se, but the category that it falls into, whether that be phencyclidine, inhalants, narcotics, cannabis, hallucinogens, depressants, or stimulants. Those are the 7 categories that we were looking for.
What about when you spot somebody and you go through the looking at their eyes, you go into a dark room?
Correct.
Now, police officers have always been trained in the academy to look at somebody's eyes. One of the things that we do sometimes, people think it's rude, is we'll flash our flashlights into their eyes. We want to see those pupils, whether they're reacting, whether they're dilated, very wide open, whether they're pinpointy. It's always told us something, but you guys go much further than that, don't you?
Exactly.
Yes.
We do an extensive darkroom examination of the pupils. The pupils tell us a lot of information. Basically, constricted pupils, very pinpoint, and we're taught in school to measure the pupils with an instrument called a pupilometer in millimeters, and basically we're trained to do that. And
People put themselves through this?
yes, they do.
Yes.
And you do pulse, which I could understand, but maybe you'd explain, and blood pressure. I
Blood
can
pressure.
understand why you do that, because
Body temperature?
I teach a little bit of this stuff, and
Right.
and I was a first aid instructor. Body temperature.
Right.
What are the indicators? What are the signs pointing to when you get, for instance, a rapid pulse?
Well, that rapid pulse, an increase in pulse might be a stimulant.
Yeah.
All right, it might fall into that category. And there are...
Makes the heart beat faster.
Yes.
Cocaine, the most commonly abused, I think.
Right.
Most
And
commonly
see,
abused
stimulants
stimulant.
are broken down into, that one category is broken down to cocaine and non-cocaine stimulants.
Amphetamine.
Yes.
Speed.
Exactly.
Right, exactly. And those are, have certain signs associated with them that we're taught. And it might not, you know, when you're going to go down that flow chart, like Danny said, that symptomology chart, that is our Bible. We don't memorize that. We use that
Yeah, I can
by
see
reading it
that.
and looking at it.
And you have to be able to answer each one of these questions personally for court purposes, if
Yes.
not
Correct.
for your own conscience. I mean, you want to know.
That's right. We want
now-
to be able to state.
They stop you at blood pressure. This is maybe, I don't know, whatever step it is. Is it null and void, the test?
Well, that's it. It's either all or nothing.
So they've
If
got to
this-
go through the 12 steps.
Right. If he
must
says,
go
I don't
through
want to do anymore, that's it.
They must go through the program. Otherwise, it goes down as a refusal, just as they said
Is it-
we refuse to take the breath test,
Yeah.
as in driving
Then
while
it becomes a... What about the time?
intoxicated.
There is a time for breath test. Is there a time limit for these tests?
Well, for the actual DRE evaluation itself, there is not a time limit.
Mhm.
But for the collecting of a urine sample, there is a time limit just as there is for blood and breath, and that time limit is 2 hours from the time of the arrest.
I don't know if this is pertinent, but is this becoming more and more common because of the drug problem? In other words, are you doing more of these evaluations, the drug recognition evaluations, because of the drug problem? Or because a lot of you are trained from your particular unit, your Stop DWI
Correct.
facility. How many do you do? Is that a fair question? How many?
The number that we do is really not that high. The only reason being is that a lot of the individuals that we are arresting for driving while intoxicated are what we call the polydrug use. They are drinking alcohol, and they are having a little cocaine, and they are having a little marijuana with it. And the first step of the 12-step program is the breath test. So when they take the breath test,
They
and
go
if
down
they
on that
are
one?
over a .06, then that's where we stop the program, because then we're just going to charge them driving under the influence of alcohol, because we have a quantitative reading that is much easier to prove in court.
Okay. Just yes or no. Prescription drugs affect it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay, so there might be an affirmative defense there? Or no?
No.
No. Okay, so they can't drive under the influence of prescription drugs?
We
Okay.
have a lot of people driving under the influence of Xanax.
All right, thank you very much. I want to thank Officer Larry Bartley and Officer Dan Meyer for being on Police Profiles, part of our Highway Patrol section, Stop DWI, and as always, Cablevision. Oh, I have to thank Officer Steve Dixon for some of the technical work that's been done, and Maria Parisi, the associate producer of this program, and Brian Andres, the director. And as always, Cablevision. And if you have any questions or any comments for your police department, write to Cablevision, 1600 Motor Parkway, Hauppauge, New York, 11788. Thank you for being part of Police Profiles and watching. I hope it's been informative for you. Thanks. you.